Hey guys, thanks for popping in tonight to watch me put together my project. I'm Anne, the Stampmaven. For those of you who have not done a class with me or watched one of my Facebook Lives, I'm glad you're here. Couple little housekeeping things. If you're watching me on a mobile device, when comments start to come through, swipe to the left, and that way they won't be in the middle of things. I'm going to just welcome everybody once instead of saying hi as everybody pops in, because I find that annoying sometimes when I'm watching things, so I don't want to annoy you guys. So let's get started. This is the project that I'm going to show you tonight. It's a simple little card folder. And let me just open it up so you can see here. It holds 6 different cards. And there's these 3 and these 3 over here. I wanted to show you one that I'm also working on with a different pattern. The one that I'm showing you tonight, I'm actually using the Garden Lane Designer Series paper, but this other one I'm working on uses the Bird Ballad and a different color palette. So let me just quickly give you a glance of those. I just love this idea for either a gift, or you can make a bunch of cards for yourself with different sentiments and then store them so you will have a card ready for any occasion. Alrighty, so like I said, we are using the Garden Lane Designer Series paper. I've chosen this pattern, and as I make my cards, you'll see that I'm going to use both sides. Then for this project, you also need 3 sheets of colored cardstock. I'm using mint macaron, melon moss, and mellow moss, and garden green. The way I chose those is on the back of all your Designer Series paper, you will get the names of the coordinating cardstock, so there is no guessing. Then I'm also going to use 3 sheets of Whisper White thick cardstock. Now, one little tip to give you is I use thick Whisper White or vanilla when I'm making card bases because it is sturdier and your card won't, fall apart. So you're also going to need some adhesive. I'm using our Stampin' Up! Snail adhesive tonight. You could easily use tear and tape or liquid glue, totally up to you. I'm also using this silicone craft sheet, and I'm going to show you several fun tricks tonight and convince you that you need this little $5 item. Okay, and I'm also going to be using the triple banner punch. And you can use any embellishments that you want. I've really kept mine to a minimum tonight because I want to keep this project easy for you. And I hope you'll stick with me through my whole little project tonight, because I'm going to show you how you can easily cut your layers and mount them to your cardstock straight every time. I'm going to show you a trick to save time when you're mounting your cling stamp sets. I'm tonight using the Well Said. It's a new stamp set coming in our annual catalog that will go live on June 4th. It's the Well Said, and as you can see, there are tons of little sentiment pieces, and I mounted these in one fell swoop. So I'm going to show you how to do that with a different stamp set tonight. And I'm also going to show you a trick to stamp your sentiments perfect and straight every time. Alrighty, let's get started. And again, let me just say hi to everybody. I don't want to slight everyone, but I'm just going to give you the howdy first. If you have questions, please leave them. I may not get to them till after the project, but I will answer them. Okay, now when I cut my thick cardstock, there are two ways to do it. And I'm going to show you both ways. And this little tip will work regardless of if you're having your card open at the top, where you will want to make your score this way, or if you're going to have a side opening card, you'll want to make your score this way. So I'm using my 8.5 by 11 piece, and I'm going to score it, and make sure you put that cutting blade up to the top. I'm going to score it in the middle. Then I'm going to flip it and do my cut at 5.5. So then I have my two card bases, and they're both already scored, and they're ready to go. Okay, show you that again. Score lengthwise at 4.5, and then cut horizontally here. Well, flip your paper, and then you're going to still cut vertically at 5.5. And then you're going to fold that, and of course you can take your bone folder. We'll do that in a minute. Now, if you want to have your card open at the top, what you want to do is make your score lengthwise. You're going to turn your paper the long way, and you're going to score it. Then you're going to do your cut at 4.25. So your score at 5.5 and your cut at 4.25. Then you will fold at the top, but you're only making 2 cuts instead of 3. Instead of 3, sorry. What some people do is they cut their paper first. So if I had cut it first, then I would have had my 1 cut, and then I would have had to score each piece individually. So this just saves you a little bit of time. Okay, we're going to put these card bases to the side, and then we're going to do the layering. Now, here's the cool thing. The front of your card base is 5.5 by 4.25, no matter whether it's a side opening card or a front opening card. And what I've determined, especially for this type of a project, if you decrease your measurements by 1/4 inch for every layer, it is so stinking easy. So let me show you how you're going to do that. Whoops, as I just dropped my card bases in my trash can. So let me get those out really quick. Okay, so now, since that first layer is 5.5, the card base is 5.5 by 4.25, then your next layer would be 5.25 by 4. So I'm going to cut 2 of my pieces of cardstock for that. So I'm going to just cut at 4, and then you will notice you're going to have a little strip that's 1/2 inch left. Don't throw that away, because we're going to use it later. Then I'm going to flip it around and cut it at 5.25, both of these pieces, And then you'll notice you have another little 1/2-inch piece left. Don't throw that away. Put in the other side. Again, cut it at 5 1/4 and 5 1/4. Save that little 1/2-inch piece. Okay, so now I've got 4 pieces of my colored cardstock. I need 2 more because I'm making 6 cards. Going to be the same size. That's the beauty of this project. I'm going to save this piece because I might use it later. It's the beauty of this project is its simplicity. You can embellish up the wazoo if you want to, but if you don't, then you have this really simple project. Okay, so now I've got these extra strips left, and again, I'm going to keep those. All right, so now we're going to start bringing back our card bases and my mat here. All right, so I'm going to give this card base a quick a quick, whatever you call that. I'm tongue-tied tonight. Crease. There we go. Now, the first way I'm going to use this mat is I'm going to use my adhesive right on here to put my snail. And the reason is that snail is not going to stick to this. If you use your grid paper or this wood-looking grain, it will stick, and you don't want that. So I've got my 4 sides. I always put just a little in the middle. Now, here's one of the other tricks I want to show you. Do you sometimes have trouble getting your card layers on your front where it's kind of crooked and then you rip it off and you destroy that? If you will use this technique consistently, that won't happen. So remember, this layer is 1/4 inch less. So that means it's going to be 1/8 inch on the top and the bottom and the sides. So if you start at the top, this is pretty easy to eyeball, your 1/8 inch. If you are very precise, you could get out a ruler, but I'm not going to do that. Then, as I've got this piece down, I'm going to just follow it gently down here to where I make sure I've got my 90-degree angle here and it's straight. Then I'm just going to take my fingers and press it all the way around. And voila, that layer is perfectly straight. Let me do another one for you really quickly. Again, use my adhesive on my craft mat and a little bit in the middle. Let me crease this first. My bone folder. Alrighty, and again, eyeball the top edge, 1/8 inch. Kind of keep your finger here so it doesn't move. Go down the left edge with your fingernail on your thumb, and voila, you've got that again. Now, you're going to do all these other 4 pieces the exact same way. I'm not going to do that right now. But the next layer that we're going to cut is our designer series paper layer. So remember, card base layer 5 1/2 by 4 1/4. Next layer 5 1/4 by 4. So if our DSP is going to go on the top, that means it is going to be 5 inches. It's going to be our first cut. I'm going to go ahead and do this remaining piece also at 5 inches. Then you're going to have this 2 inch by 12 inch piece left. You're going to save that. Okay, and it's double-sided, and this particular pattern works well either way. Some of the ones, like the bird one that I did, the back side of the pattern I picked doesn't work too well. So, okay, so 5 inches, then the next cut is at 3 3/4 because the layer before that was at 4. So 1/4 of an inch less would be 3 3/4. Okay, and those of you who don't like to use your designer series paper, you like to hoard it rather than use it, I hope after you see this project, you will make some of these for friends, or at least just make a bunch of cards for yourself. Again, we have this little strip left. Keep it. So I've got 3 pieces here. Now I'm going to quickly do this one at 3 3/4. And 1, 2, and 3. Now, I am just doing one. Again, you want to save this little piece. Okay, so I am just using my card base, one solid cardstock, and then a DSP layer. If you wanted to, you could keep decreasing by 1/4 of an inch. You could put another color on here and then put your DSP. But for simplicity, because I know some of you are new card makers and maybe you don't have a lot of supplies, so I want to show you something that is fairly simple and doesn't cost a whole lot of money. Okay, so now I'm going to put on my DSP layer. Okay, I'm going to use that same trick that I showed you to line this up. Again, you're going to come down about 1/8 of an inch, which is half of the 1/4 of an inch. So that would, you'll have 1/8 and 1/8, which makes 1/4. For those of you that don't remember your math, I'm telling you. Okay, so see how perfectly lined up that is? You haven't ripped into your cardstock. Now, for this one, I want to use this pattern. So I'm going to put my adhesive here, and I think I'm going to be running out of adhesive in a minute, but I've got an extra one here ready to go. All right, so I'm going to put this down. All right, now we're going to do this. You would do the same thing with all the rest of your pieces. Decide which way you want it to go. Now, if you wanted to, you could even get fancy. You could cut this piece in half on the diagonal and then put it on your cardstock. So you would have kind of, you could use one of these pieces and then, you know, it would just be this half and then this part would be solid, which would be really cute too. There's so many possibilities with your designer series paper. And I also have this card layering video on my YouTube channel. So if you went to YouTube and you searched for Stampmaven, then you would be able to see that. And I have a whole chart on going down to all the layers you could possibly want. And while you're there, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any of my videos. Okay, so we have covered getting the layers on straight. We've used our silicone mat when using adhesive so it won't stick. Now, we have gotten our cards almost done, but what is missing? The sentiment that you need. Well, remember, I told you to save these little strips. Yep, that is what we are going to use to stamp our adhesive, our sentiments. Okay, now here comes the next trick using this handy dandy craft mat. So I'm using the far apart but close to the heart sentiment because when I send these cards, I'm going to send them to friends that don't necessarily live right in my area. So here's the trick. I'm using Memento Black ink. My other go-to color for sentiments is our basic gray. Sometimes I use the basic gray when I don't want it to be quite as wow in your face as the black, but tonight I'm using the black because I want you to be able to see it. Okay, so I'm going to ink up this stamp, and then I'm going to just stamp it on this silicone mat. Now, wow, I got this perfect the first try, but let's say I had stamped it and for some reason I had my stamp a little cattywampus. Oops, I see that there. What if I had stamped it on this piece? Well, Stampin' Up! Paper always has two sides, so you could flip it over, but you know, if you screwed it up on the second side, then you'd be wasting that paper. So now that I know kind of, okay, I've got that even, now I can come in with my Stampin' Sponge and I can erase this right off of my mat, and woohoo, I haven't wasted any paper. Okay, now this, we're going to use this one first because remember I told you to save it? Look how perfectly that fits on here. And remember, this layer, our Mossy Meadow, I think I said Mellow Moss before. That was an old color, but our Mossy Meadow is 4 inches across. So this fits perfectly. Now this strip obviously is too wide. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this little guy at 4 inches, and I will get 2 4-inch strips, and then I'm going to have a smaller one left, but woohoo, we're not going to waste that because look here, I used it on the front of it. Now mine is a little smaller because I cut it, but you would have that extra piece. Okay, now that we know our sentiment is going to be straight, I'm going to do this one more time just to make sure I've got it lined up because I've been yakking. Okay, so I'm going to get it on here, and see, it's straight, but I put it too far up. So I'm just going to come back in, and I'm going to just put it down a little bit. Okay, perfect. I've got it. So now I'm going to put a little bit of adhesive on the side where I fouled it up. Then I'm going to put it right here on my card. Now, you could put it here, you could put it here, you could do it wherever you wanted it to be. Let me show you one more time. Ink, okay, and voila, perfection. And you will get that every time. And then don't forget to put the lid back on your Memento, and go ahead and take off that ink because you don't want it to be on parts of your card where you don't want it. Now, if you wanted to on this card, we're basically done, but you could stamp on the inside if you wanted. You could take some little pearls or rhinestones and just put them in some little strategic places on the card where you might want them. I always use an odd number of them because I think it looks better. And supposedly the true artists have said that that's what you want to do. So who am I to disagree with them? Okay, so now I've showed you what I did with those little pieces. Okay, now I want to show you how we're going to make this little cover. should you want to do that. Okay, move this out of the way. And remember, I'm going to show you a quick trick for mounting your cling stamp sets too. Have you used those cling stamp sets? Have you ordered any of them, like in the Occasions catalog? In the new catalog, all of our stamp sets will either be the cling or photopolymer. A couple of the big background stamps are wood, but we're moving away from those because they're actually cheaper too. Okay, so here I have my 8.5 by 11 piece, one of the 3 solid ones that I chose in the beginning. So the first thing, well, hello there, I've got my stamp. We don't want that. Okay, so I am going to score at 5.5 to start. Okay, then I'm going to turn my paper and I'm going to score at 2 inches. And it doesn't matter if you do it on this side or this side. It's going to become the bottom of our card folder, so it doesn't really matter. You can just make it work whichever way you do it. Okay, now we are going to give it a crease with our bone folder, and then I'm going to fold up here where I scored. Okay, now, so you have your little pocket where you're going to put your cards in your envelopes. Now, what I like to do is cut this. Let me show you on my finished one right here. Can you see that? Okay, I like to cut this, reason being when it closes, there will be less bulk right here and it will lay down nicely. And the way I do that, there's probably lots of ways to do it, but what I like to do is I put this in my trimmer. I find the 1 inch mark and take my bone folder. You could take, see here how the little scoring blade has a little nubby on it? You could, if you wanted, just put your little mark there and then come over here, put your line, your score line at 1 inch on this side, and then put your little nubby there. Okay, I did a better job on this one. Then what you're going to do is you're going to cut here. Okay, so just put one side in. It doesn't really matter which one you do first, because I'm going to show you a little trick to get it totally even on the other side. All right, do I have that in line? I think I do. Yep. Okay, so I've got that cut, and I want to just, I didn't quite get it all the way through, which is fine. I'm going to just take my scissors. Okay, and then you can either put it back in your trimmer and cut on this score line, or just take your paper snips and score that, and then just trim off this other little piece. I usually do it with my trimmer. It gets a little bit better of an edge. See here how I've got kind of that. I got to go back in and trim that up. Okay, there we go. Perfect. Now, okay, so I've got that, and then I'm going to come over and do the same thing on this side. But one thing that you can do, and you know what I just noticed? I cut that backwards. So let's see if we can do this. Yeah, I cut it backwards. Hey, so much for live TV. But what you wanted to do was score it this way. And you really could. Hey, the person you give it to isn't going to notice it, but probably you want to do it the right way. So you come back in and put your 1 inch mark on this side over here. Let me get it the right way, right here. I'm just going to do that with my bone folder. Okay. And then we're going to chop it down this way. Okay. All righty. Let me scoochie that over. Okay. Voila. Okay. And then we'll just go all the way in. Okay. So see here, that is how it's supposed to look. Then what you would do is you would just flip this one on to this side so you could then cut it right here. Does that make sense? After you've cut this off, that way they'll be exactly the same. Alrighty. And then here's the cool thing, how I did this part. Remember, this fold here at the bottom is 2 inches. So going along with our 1/4 inch less, we're going to cut a piece at 1 3/4. Then what you do is, see then here how that makes a nice contrasting color. And what you want to do then is, since this is going to be a 1/4 inch, if you come in with a ruler or another piece of cardstock, let me get this cutter out of the way. Okay, so you line it up on this edge, right? So you've got your 1/8 inch over here. Then if you use this piece or a ruler to come in right here where it's 1/8, then either stick it in your trimmer or take your handy dandy paper snips. Then you can just put this layer right on top and it will make a nice little contrast. And then what I did is, remember those pieces I had you save? I just took one, measured it, cut it at an angle to just put it on there to make a little extra embellishment. Alrighty, so sorry I screwed up that one side, but I think you got the gist of it, and if for some reason you didn't, leave me a comment and I will go through it again. Okay, now I am going to show you, like tonight I told you I use this Well Said stamp set. Now, what you normally would do, well, what I did before I saw this little trick, and I didn't come up with it, I saw it on the internet, and I wish I could remember who it was. I'd give them credit, but I didn't. So I would come along, I would peel off each label, then I would come along, pop out my little piece, I would take off this piece, and then I'd stick on the label. Okay, well, we can see that would take a lot of time, right? Well, we all don't have a lot of time. We don't want to spend tons of time putting together our stamp sets. We want to use them, right? So what I'm going to use to help me in this process, if you haven't seen this, this is our Take Your Pick Stampin' Tool. And I'm going to use this little spatula. It also has a paper piercer. If you're very careful, you could use this end, but I prefer using the spatula end just to make sure I don't destroy my stamps. Now, for this technique, you do want to take one of the images in whatever set you do, go ahead, take out the red rubber, and mount the label. Okay? Now, once we have done that, what we're going to do is we're going to come and we're going to take off these pieces of the ones that are remaining. but we're not going to take them out of this piece. You can also, if you have trouble grabbing it, that's where you can use this spatula to kind of pick at the ends and like that and pull it off. Because sometimes if you don't have nails, that can be a little bit of a challenge. But if you just use the spatula, voila, they come right off, right? Okay, sometimes, there we go. Well, this one's being a little obstreperous. Okay, now, so we've got this piece, and I'm going to turn it around like this. Now, we want to take off our, the sticky part, okay? And you want to take it off of all of them at once. So, you want to just get a little corner. And of course, this will be easier when you're doing it in front of you because you're not doing it for a camera. Make sure when you're doing this that you try to be very careful when you're peeling so you don't get your finger stuck on part of it. If you do, you know, just gently peel your finger off of it. Okay. Got a couple more. I chose this one because there's not a ton of pieces on it like the Magnolia, or like the Well Said. The Magnolia, the Good Morning Magnolia is a dual stamp set. You get two different cases. Okay, so now here we go with the fun part. You've got your rubber where you've peeled off this coating piece. Very important. You got to take that off. Then you've got your sticky labels facing up. You are going to position this, and I'm going to get my head down here so I can kind of get it right where I need it to be. You use this one as a guide, okay? And then come along, turn it over, rub it down just to make sure they stick. And then when you go to peel this back, oh, look at this. You've got all of your stamps mounted in exactly the right place. Isn't that awesome? Then you can just stick this little guy back in here and put it in your case, and you are ready to go. Oh my goodness. Well, that is what I have for you tonight. I hope you've enjoyed. Oh, let me tell you one more thing. On my card folder that I made, when I put them in here, okay, I would put 3 on one side, and then I would put 3 envelopes in here. Then I would put 3, and I've got 3 envelopes right here. I would put my 3 envelopes behind my cards on this side. Then I would do the same thing on this side. And then the last thing I would do is I've got a piece. This is new ribbon. It's mint macaron that matches this. All I would do is I would tie it along this side. I did, oh, you know what? Oh, hello. I forgot one thing to show you, how I did this piece right here. Okay, remember we had this 2-inch strip left from when we cut our DSP, and it is 2 by 12. I actually want it to be 2 by 10, okay? So I'm going to cut this at 10. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold it in half, and I'm going to use this side so you can see it looks just like this one. I'm going to fold that in half, Then I'm going to take my banner punch. I'm going to stick one side in like this. See how that makes that nice banner or flag effect? I'm going to punch the other side. Then all I did was I put adhesive here and here, and then I just put it right on my card folder. And this one I think I cut down a little more to start with to 8 inches, but anything about 10 inches or less will work. If you leave it at 12 inches, it'll stick off here. So just do that. And then I used my little pieces, stamped my sentiment, and I stuck a little pearl on. Okay, then I took my coordinating ribbon and I cut off about 12 to 14 inches. And I'm going to just tie it around. You could also use one of our neat embellishment clips if you wanted, but I think the ribbon looks really nice. And there you have gotten your gift to go. So I think now that really is everything I want to show you. And thanks so much for joining. If you liked this particular tip, if you subscribe to my newsletter, go to my blog at stampmaven.com. Just put your name and your email and you'll get a free gift for doing that, as well as you'll get all my neat emails once a week. We don't spam you. We just try to give you all the latest in Stampin' Up! Information. So again, thanks for joining, and I'll see you real soon.